Namaskar, welcome back. At the moment, here at the ashram Anandagauri in Denmark, we have yoga teacher training going on. And I shared a particular discourse of our Guru Sri Sri Anandamurti the other day, and it brought to mind something that Jesus said, "Ask and you shall receive." And I'd never really kind of clicked with that or understood its meaning before, but I found that this idea of ask and you shall receive, it kind of opened up something in me and made me aware that we have this amazing resource there, which we really need to succeed on our spiritual journey, and that most of the time we're not really that open to it. We're so used to doing everything by ourselves. So the idea of surrender somehow, to me, connected for the first time with this old teaching by Jesus, ask and you shall receive. So the discourse that it's taken from is called The Path unto the Abode of Beatitude. And it talks about the phases of the spiritual journey and how in each phase of the journey there's a certain obstacle that you face, there's a certain ability that you have to overcome that obstacle, a natural ability, but it's never going to be quite enough. We will always, or often, we will need more power. And where are we going to get that power? We're going to get that power from the Supreme Consciousness. And then we're instructed how to ask and how we see the Supreme Consciousness in that particular stage of the journey. In other discourses, Sri Sri Anandamurti says, don't ask for anything, because Paramapurusha knows what you need and just trust that he will give it to you. But often we're in situations where we're desperate and we just feel we need to ask. We know that we're stuck. We cannot go further. We've crashed and we cannot get up and we're in need of help. And I think Sri Sri Anandamurti understood that, and he said, but if you need to ask only for one thing, and that is, Paramapurusha, O Supreme Consciousness, please guide my mind along the right path. Which is kind of related to something from the Vedas, the Gayatri Mantra, where you are asking the divine to guide your intellect in the right direction to the path of liberation. And also it occurred to me recently that from Christianity in the Lord's Prayer, where you ask, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, right? So it's kind of similar thing. Don't lead me into the path of temptation. Lead me in the path that frees me from this. So let's listen to it. I haven't. The whole discourse is very long, so I'm just taking certain sections of it. I think the first two stages of the spiritual journey are the ones that concern us the most, so I'm going to deal with those. So I've called it Ask and You Shall Receive. In the starting phase of the spiritual journey, it is the inborn instincts that may stand in the way, that may create obstacles in your march. One must keep these inborn instincts under control. The control must not be loosened. In behavior, in different types of psychic expression, there must be some kind of restraint. Human beings, by the use of their own ordinary power, very often cannot do this. I already told you that human beings, at the most, can make efforts, And if the Supreme Consciousness is pleased with their efforts, he will help them with positive microvita. Positive microvita are kind of living vibrations given to us or sent to us by the Supreme Consciousness that help us to overcome obstacles and make spiritual progress. So positive microvita leads us towards the nucleus, the source. Negative microvita leads us towards the external world. The Supreme Consciousness will get the work done with the help of positive microvita. The duty of human beings is only to continue their efforts to please the Supreme Consciousness, to please Him, and to obtain His grace. That alone will accomplish the task. So here, in the first stage, you will have to go on towards the goal, towards the end point, with more and more vitality. And this vitality you are to get from the Supreme Lord. Here, Paramapurusha, the Supreme Consciousness, is your Lord. And not only the Lord, but the Supreme Lord, from whom you are to get the stamina to move on. And in the second stage of the spiritual journey, although it does not concern inborn instincts, it concerns non-inborn human instincts. If you go against their characteristics, they will revolt against you, and the result may be dangerous. I told you that under such circumstances, the physical integrity or physical structure may be in danger. There may be complete disintegration of the physical solidarity, the solidarity of any structure. In this phase, one is to remember that each and every particle of one's existence, each and every iota, each and every ectoplasm. Ectoplasm means mind stuff. Your mind is made of something, mind stuff, or ectoplasm. Each and every ectoplasm of one's existence is an important, valuable, and necessary part of the Supreme Consciousness. In the first phase, you are to ask the Supreme Consciousness for the vitality to fight against your physical weaknesses, your physical imperfections. In a second phase, you are to ask for vitality, psychic vitality, from the same entity, not to fight against your inborn instincts, but against your physical or psychic imperfections. I already told you that human beings can make progress only up to a certain stage. And if they want to make further progress, they will have to divert their psychophysical longings towards a different and better path, and keep the flow of their movement intact. Or they will have to ascribe, means to impose or attach, macrocosmic grandeur, means the greatness of the divine, to physical pabulum. In short, that's saying you will have to look at these physical objects that are causing your attraction and remind yourself that these are merely expressions of the divine consciousness, God in the form of a person or an object or anything. The special type of psychic force, the faculty of self-control which human beings require at this stage, lies hidden in human beings. But that is not enough to accomplish the task. To accomplish the task, they will have to make more and more efforts. And for this, they require more and more strength. And they will get this strength from the Supreme Consciousness. It has already been said that human beings, no doubt, do meditation, do spiritual practice. But merely by doing spiritual practice, they do not achieve anything, or they do not attain anything. Only due to the grace of the Supreme Consciousness can they attain anything. So, to overcome their imperfection and establish themselves in the higher stratum, they will have to seek strength from the Supreme Consciousness. They will have to approach the Supreme Consciousness with these words: O Supreme Consciousness, I want to move towards you, but I do not have sufficient strength to move. Please give me strength. I want to move on. In this phase, the Supreme Consciousness is not only the Supreme Lord, but he is something more than that. He is also the Supreme Progenitor, Parent or Creator. He creates everything, and that is why he is in a position to help you. So you have now understood that in the first phase, the Supreme Entity is your Lord, the Lord of all Lords. But in the second phase of your march, he is not only the Lord of all Lords, but he is your Supreme Progenitor, your Supreme Creator as well. And that's the discourse. So it's talking about the first two phases of our journey and the type of obstacles that we face and how we can deal with them and how we see Paramarpurusha, the Supreme Consciousness, in that stage of the journey. So the first phase is struggle against one's inborn instincts. So we have to keep our hunger under control, we have to keep our thirst under control, we have to keep our desire for sleep under control, we have to keep our fear under control, running away from danger. These are all inborn instincts. So they are natural, but and you can't kill them, but you have to keep them under control. And he says that very often human beings aren't able to control them sufficiently, right, with our own ordinary power. And that but we have to make our efforts, right? So we make our best efforts, and if the Supreme Consciousness is pleased with those efforts, he will help us with positive microvita. Those kind of, an emanation, a vibration emitted from the divine that helps us overcome our obstacles. And then it says there's a particular type of way of seeing the divine. So think of the divine as the Supreme Lord, the Lord of all Lords. And I was reflecting, why is that important? Because, the Supreme Lord is obviously something very powerful and a source. When you have a source of limitless power there, well, there it is, all the power that you need. So see the source of that power and get the help. So we are getting power. But in the first stage of the journey, perhaps that relationship with the divine is not so personal. It's more, here is where the power and the strength is that I need to overcome this obstacle. In the second stage of the spiritual journey, the obstacles are not the inborn instincts. They are still instincts, human instincts, but they are the ones that develop as you get older. So, for example, sexual desire, shame, and other maybe kind of things that develop as the glands mature. Maybe a certain sense of responsibility, dutiness, love for other people, love for, brothers and sisters and things like that. When we're babies, we don't have that love. It develops as we mature. But they're definitely instincts, but they just develop later. And he says that if you go against, now you have to keep these instincts under control, but if one overdoes it and we tip into what we can think of as suppression, an unnatural suppression of natural human instincts. And if you do that, then you go against the characteristics of your vitality, of your life force. And these instincts may revolt against you, and the result can be dangerous, so that you can actually damage your physical health and damage your mental health, right? So this type of suppression of instincts can be very dangerous. Nevertheless, we are still in the position where we need control and where these instincts may be creating obstacles for us. Often we find ourselves in a situation where our natural instincts are pulling us in one direction, but it's not going to be helpful for us. Rather, it's going to create problems. So how do we deal then with this situation? And here he says that the main, he gives 3 basic pieces of advice. The first one is, never forget that each and every atom of your existence, each and every ectoplasm, means your mental existence also, or whatever's going on in your mind. Every atom of your mind and body is an important, valuable, and necessary part of the Supreme Entity. Actually, the word he uses is indispensable, but I think many people don't know what that means. So it means completely necessary. So that strikes me as something that might be very relevant to something like shame, right? Shyness and things like that. So if this shame instinct is there, I can see that reminding oneself that each and every particle of your existence is the precious part of the divine consciousness. Every aspect of you, every feeling that you have is part of that, part of the divine. So every molecule of your existence is divine. If you really think that and remind yourself about that, that will help get rid of the shame. Why shall I feel shame if I'm not evil? Rather, if I understand that every part of me is a precious part of the divine. So that helped me a lot. We all have to struggle with these, and I'm no exception. And this particular piece of advice helped me a lot in overcoming that kind of instinct. And he also says that if you want to make further progress against the non-inborn instincts, you will have to divert your psychophysical longings, so your attraction towards something, towards a different and better path, and keep the flow of their movement, and keep the flow of your movement. In other words, don't block the flow. You are moving. Now you're moving towards something that's going to create trouble. So how do you keep moving, but divert, right? So you're moving towards something that's going to get you in trouble. You can't stop moving. That's unhealthy. You still need to keep moving, but you need to channel or divert your movement in a new and better direction. And what is that direction? To see everything, and to begin with the object that you're attracted to remind yourself this is the divine in the form of that object. And therefore, your attraction gets diverted towards the divine. You look deeper into something, you see the divine in it, and you divert your attraction there. So constantly practicing and reminding yourself that everything is divine, just changing forms of one divine presence, that helps gradually shift your attachment to a subtler and higher level. Instead of being attracted to the physical form of things, you are attracted to their essence. You see God in everything. You are fulfilling a more deeper spiritual urge rather than just a physical urge or a psychic urge. And then the third piece of advice is similar. In this second phase, against the inborn instincts, you have to ask for vitality, psychic vitality. So you need mental vitality, mental strength from the Supreme Consciousness, not to fight against your inborn instincts, but against your physical or psychic imperfections. Okay, so the inborn instincts, you can't say that they are imperfections. We are born with them. But complexes that we have, like shame or other things that come later, these are some kind of psychic imperfection, and maybe powerful sexual desire. If it's out of control, then it's a physical imperfection. Right? There's something natural about it, but if it's not controlled, then it's some kind of imperfection. So in the second phase, we're asking for vitality to fight against our physical or psychic imperfections. And he says here also that for every type of longing or desire that we also have a natural inborn capacity to control it. But it's a limited capacity. And once you hit that limit, then, you run out of ability to control. And so we're going to need more control. How do we get that to overcome and go further, right? So we need to make more and more efforts, and for that we require more and more strength, and we will get this strength from the Supreme Consciousness, right? And then he gives actual words of how, and this comes back to the ask and you shall receive. And he says, so to overcome their imperfection and establish themselves in the higher stratum, they will have to seek strength from the Supreme Consciousness, Paramapurusha. They will have to approach Paramapurusha with these words: Paramapurusha, I want to move towards you, but I do not have sufficient strength to move. Please give me strength. So, ask and you shall receive. And I found that little phrase just was, suddenly I was seeing possibilities of strength and ways of dealing with challenges that hold me back that I hadn't quite realized before or hadn't quite connected to the possibilities. Ask and you shall receive. It's there all the time, that strength. And as it says in this discourse, we have certain abilities to control things, but they're limited. We're always going to need more strength, and the source of that strength is Paramapurusha. So to have that awareness of your limitations, to have the awareness of where you can get the extra strength, and to have the openness to seek that is kind of made me feel optimistic and happy. And I've been remembering it a lot and saying it to myself a lot. Ask and you shall receive. And it just fills me with this kind of optimism. And that's what really, I think, what I wanted to share with you. And then in this second phase where we're struggling with non-inborn instincts, the relationship with the divine also subtly changes. So in the first stage, we see the divine as the Lord of all lords. But in the second phase, he is still that, but he is also your supreme progenitor. Your progenitor means like parent, the one who brought you into the world. Your supreme creator as well. All right, so it's a little bit more of an intimate, personal, it's getting closer. So you're not just this incredibly powerful source. You are my creator. You created me, and you are, in a sense, my father and my mother. And you have this love that a parent has for its child, and I see you also with that love that a child has for its parent, for its creator. So it's much more, it's the next phase of a more intimate personal relationship. So there are two other stages to the path, but that would take longer than we can really deal with nicely in one video. And they're kind of advanced stages that are kind of interesting theoretically to know about, but not so immediately practical for us because we're not there yet. So thank you for joining. I hope you found that encouraging and insightful and also helpful. And I wish you a good week. All the best. Namaskar.